Guys, my name is Esther from Allison Tutors, and today I'm going to be finishing up from the last part where we left from. This is basically going to be on measures to combat inflation as well as inflation targeting. Okay, so the measures to combat inflation include the following: raising taxation. So by increasing taxation, right, we're able to curb excess demand in the economy. So direct taxation will leave consumers and businesses with less money to spend, hence people are encouraged to save. Now, if there is excess demand in the economy, we did mention the fact that it actually contributes to demand pull inflation. And we also don't want the economy to overheat. So because of this, if we raise tax, it means to say that people have less money to spend and then they will be encouraged to save, right? And then we also won't have excess demand. Now, indirect taxation, like your VAT, it will also lead to an increase in the cost of living, and therefore, this will actually reduce demand and people will buy fewer goods. Now, let us go on to the next tool. There can also be a reduction in the government spending. So, if the level of inflation is high, the government can reduce its spending on public goods and services. We also have implementation of supply side economic policies. The government can implement policies that increase productivity, competition, and innovation. But how does it do this? To start with, it can actually lower taxes on personal income so as to encourage people to work harder. So the reason why many people they migrate from certain countries, let's say countries like Canada, Canada actually has like a high tax rates, right? So because of this, it actually discourages someone to keep working. Therefore, they end up moving to other countries. Now, there can also be lower taxes for companies to encourage investment and capital formation. So one of the things that a government can also do if it wants to lure international investors is to lower its taxation, right? So that most foreign companies can actually invest in that particular country. We also have things like lower tax on interest and dividends to encourage greater savings, as well as a reduction in government savings. I think this is quite self explanatory. Now, let us go on to monetary measures. So, the South African Reserve Bank can take the following steps to combat inflation. To start with, they can also increase the repo rate. So, remember something: repo rate is the interest rate at which a central bank of a country lends commercial banks. I did see a question like this in one of the past papers, so I think it would be good for you to also just remember the definition. So if the repo rate increases, then it means to say the interest rate at which customers borrow money from banks also rises. Therefore, what does this mean? It means to say that there's going to be less demand for credit facilities from banking institutions, and also there's going to be less spending, right? They should also, the SAB, which is South African Reserve Bank, can also decrease money supply. I did talk about the disadvantages of pumping a lot of money into an economy, right? If you remember the case of Zimbabwe and hyperinflation, what actually attributed to that was large amounts of money being printed into the economy. So for us to actually combat inflation, we can decrease the money supply. There can also be a restriction on granting of credit by banks, as well as reducing the currency control. So all these are monetary measures that can be used by the South African Reserve Bank to combat inflation. Now let us go on to the next part, which is inflation targeting. So inflation targeting is a framework in which central banks use monetary policy tools, especially the control of short-term interest rates, to keep inflation in line with a given target. South Africa's inflation target range is 3 to 6%, right? So before adopting the inflation target rate, the SAB uses several different frameworks, including exchange rate targeting and money supply targeting. So basically, one of South Africa's targets is actually to keep its inflation between 3 to 6%, right? Currently, inflation is at 6.3%. So definitely, the government is trying to come up with policies that would make it fall back into the target range. Okay, so basically that's all there is in relation to this topic. The additional details to take note of, I think for this time they might be a bit invalid. They would be valid when someone looks at investments as well as exchange currency rates. I'm also going to put a link to the blog. So in this blog, I basically compiled past paper related questions on inflation, and these questions are from somewhere around 2013 up until 2023. I think it would be really good for you to practice them. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.